A safety deposit box key found clutched in the hand of a dead woman. That's what greeted first responders at the lakeside home of Eleanor Blackwood. On May 12, 2017, the 68-year-old widow lay face up on her kitchen floor with a single gunshot. Wound to the chest. No forced entry. No signs of robbery. Nothing taken except, apparently, her life. The responding officers initially logged it as a home invasion gone wrong, but 3 details immediately struck Detective Marcus Reed as unusual. First, Eleanor's fingers were tightly wrapped around that safety deposit. Box key? Not the typical post-mortem position. Second, a half-packed suitcase lay open on her bed upstairs, suggesting imminent travel plans. And third, a handwritten note. On her desk read simply, "If anything happens to me, tell them I was ready to talk." The them remained unspecified. The talk remained unknown. Within 24 hours of Eleanor's death, her adult children Thomas Blackwood, Margaret Fleming, and David Blackwood arrived in town for their mother's funeral. Within 48 hours, the contents of that safety deposit box would disappear completely. Within 1 week, the investigation would uncover 3 decades of carefully guarded secrets, linking Eleanor to one of the most notorious cold cases in the state's history. What began as a seemingly straightforward murder investigation would soon reveal that Eleanor Blackwood's final secret didn't die with her. It merely set in motion a deadly countdown that would threaten everyone who had ever been close to her. Millfield, Connecticut presented a picture of New England charm. Tree-lined. Streets led to a town center, anchored by a white-steepled church and red-brick municipal buildings. Eleanor Blackwood's colonial-style home sat on 3 acres overlooking Lake Millfield, part of an exclusive neighborhood where most residents knew each other's business or thought they did. Eleanor moved to Millfield in 1980 with her husband Kenneth Blackwood, a corporate attorney who died of heart failure in 2012. Neighbors described Eleanor as reserved but pleasant, involved in local gardening clubs and historical preservation committees. She stood 5'4", with silver hair typically pulled back in a neat bun, always well-dressed and meticulously organized. Her 3 children had all moved away from Millfield years earlier. Thomas, 45, worked as an investment banker in Chicago. Margaret, 42, ran a successful interior design firm in Boston. David, 38, taught literature at a private school in Vermont. Family photographs displayed throughout Eleanor's home showed smiling faces at graduations, weddings, and holidays, images of apparent normalcy that would soon be called into question. Detective Marcus Reed, a 20-year veteran of the Millfield Police Department, headed the investigation. At 52, Reed had worked on every major case in Millfield since the late 1990s. With salt and pepper hair and perpetually rolled-up sleeves, he approached investigations methodically, rarely jumping to conclusions. Eleanor Blackwood's murder would test this disciplined approach like no case before. Eleanor's body was discovered at 10:17 a.m. by Maria Sanchez, her housekeeper of 15 years, who arrived for her regular Thursday cleaning. Sanchez immediately called 911 upon finding the front door unlocked and Eleanor unresponsive on the kitchen floor. Emergency responders arrived within 7 minutes, but pronounced Eleanor dead at the scene. Medical examiner Dr. Patricia Lowe placed the time of death between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. the previous evening. The single bullet had entered Eleanor's chest at a slightly downward angle, piercing her heart and causing rapid, fatal blood loss. The weapon, a .38 caliber revolver, was missing from the scene. No shell casings were found, consistent with a revolver that doesn't eject casings automatically. Crime scene technicians documented blood spatter patterns indicating Eleanor had been standing near the kitchen island when shot, then collapsed backward. Her reading glasses lay broken nearby. A mug of tea, still half full, sat on the counter. The house alarm system had not been activated that evening, suggesting Eleanor either knew her killer or the person had legitimate access to the home. The kitchen showed no signs of struggle. Throughout the house, nothing appeared disturbed, except for Eleanor's desk in the study, where drawers hung open and papers lay scattered. A document shredder in the corner contained the remnants of multiple pages, too thoroughly destroyed for reconstruction. The telephone in the study had been used at 6:42 p.m. to call a number that investigators would later trace to a burner phone purchased with cash at a convenience store 20 miles away. The half-packed suitcase in Eleanor's bedroom contained enough clothing for approximately 1 week, along with her passport and a folder of financial documents. Her cell phone, found in her handbag on the entry hall table, showed a text message sent at 6:30 p.m. stating only, "I've decided. We need to meet tonight." The recipient's number belonged to another untraceable burner phone. Outside, security cameras from the neighboring property captured partial footage of a dark-colored sedan entering Eleanor's driveway at 8:05 p.m. and departing at 8:27 p.m. The vehicle's license plate was not visible, and the driver remained inside the car, beyond the camera's range. Initial interviews with neighbors revealed that Eleanor had seemed increasingly anxious in the weeks before her death. She had been observed checking her mailbox multiple times daily and had inquired about installing additional security cameras. 2 days before her murder, Eleanor visited her attorney, Douglas Weber, though Weber immediately cited attorney-client privilege and refused to disclose the nature of their meeting. A safety deposit box, key found in Eleanor's hand, belonged to First Millfield Bank. Detective Reed obtained a warrant to access the box. But upon arrival at the bank, the morning after Eleanor's body was discovered, he learned that someone had already accessed the box earlier that day using the duplicate key. Bank security footage showed a woman wearing a headscarf and sunglasses, entering at 9:23 a.m. and departing 12 minutes later with a manila envelope. The woman's face remained largely obscured from cameras. Eleanor's cell phone records revealed multiple calls in the previous month to a law firm specializing in criminal defense, though no active case involving Eleanor existed in court records. Her internet search history included queries about statutes of limitations for various crimes and procedures for contacting cold case units. The autopsy confirmed the cause of death as a single gunshot wound. Toxicology reports showed no drugs or alcohol in Eleanor's system. Under her fingernails, forensic technicians found traces of ink and paper fibers, suggesting she had been handling documents shortly before her death. The position of her hand around the safety deposit key indicated she had grabbed it purposefully as she fell, not accidentally. Within 24 hours of Eleanor's death, all 3 of her children arrived in Millfield. Thomas Blackwood secured accommodations at a local hotel rather than staying at his mother's house, citing emotional distress. Margaret Fleming chose to stay with family friends. David Blackwood initially attempted to enter his mother's house, but was turned away by officers. Securing the crime scene, all 3 siblings expressed shock and requested privacy during initial police interviews. Detective Reed established a timeline of Eleanor's final day. At 9:15 a.m., security cameras at First Millfield Bank recorded her accessing her safety deposit box. At 10:30 a.m., she met with attorney Douglas Weber for approximately 1 hour. Between noon and 2 p.m., she visited the local pharmacy and grocery store. From 3 p.m. until her death, no public cameras captured her movements. 3 days into the investigation, Reed secured a court order compelling attorney Weber to discuss his final meeting with Eleanor, as her death negated attorney-client privilege in certain circumstances. Weber revealed that Eleanor had been preparing to provide information about a cold case, the disappearance of 19-year-old Sofia Martinez in 1982. Eleanor had scheduled a meeting with state police for the following Monday, but refused to tell Weber exactly what she knew, stating only that she couldn't carry the secret anymore. The Martinez case represented one of the area's most notorious unsolved mysteries. Sophia, a nursing student at Millfield Community College, vanished while walking home from a campus event. Despite extensive searches and multiple leads, no body was ever found, and no arrests were made. The case file remained open, but inactive for 35 years. Reed immediately requested the Martinez case files. While waiting for those records, he focused on Eleanor's safety deposit box. Bank records showed she had accessed it 17 times in the previous year, an unusually high frequency. The contents, now missing, remained unknown, but the dimensions of the box suggested documents rather than valuables like jewelry. Forensic analysis of Eleanor's home computer revealed deleted emails sent to an anonymous account, arranging a meeting on the night of her death. The emails referenced documents that will correct the record and evidence I should have shared decades ago. Recovery software could not retrieve attachments that had been sent with these emails. 1 week into the investigation, Reed interviewed Eleanor's children individually. Thomas Blackwood, the eldest, provided a solid alibi, having been in Chicago until the morning after the murder. Financial records confirmed his whereabouts through credit card transactions. Margaret Fleming initially claimed to have been in Boston, but later admitted to driving to Connecticut the day before her mother's death, staying at a hotel 30 miles from Millfield. She explained that she had planned to surprise her mother the following day regarding a family matter. David Blackwood's whereabouts proved more difficult to verify, as he claimed to have been hiking alone in Vermont's Green Mountains when his mother was killed. The Martinez case files arrived on day 9, containing thousands of pages of interviews, lead sheets, and forensic reports. Reed noticed that Kenneth Blackwood, Eleanor's husband, had been interviewed twice during the original investigation. The first interview established his alibi, a business dinner with colleagues. The second interview, conducted weeks later, questioned discrepancies in his timeline. No further action had been taken regarding these inconsistencies. A breakthrough came when forensic technicians processed Eleanor's gardening gloves found in a potting shed. Soil samples contained elevated levels of lye, commonly used to accelerate decomposition. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a disturbance in the soil of Eleanor's rose garden, approximately 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, dating back several decades. On day 12, excavation of the garden area uncovered human remains, buried 5 feet below the surface. Dental records confirmed the identity as Sophia Martinez, missing for 35 years. The cause of death appeared to be blunt force trauma to the skull. Remnants of clothing matched the description of what Sophia had been wearing when she disappeared. A class ring from Millfield Community College was found nearby in the soil. The investigation shifted focus. Eleanor's handwritten journals, discovered in a hidden compartment of her bedroom closet, detailed her growing suspicion over the years that her husband Kenneth had been involved in Sophia's disappearance. The most recent entries described her decision to finally do the right thing after discovering what she called irrefutable proof in Kenneth's old files following his death. Financial records revealed that over 3 decades, Kenneth and Eleanor had made anonymous donations totaling more than $200,000 to the Martinez family's Foundation for Missing Persons. These donations began 3 years after Sophia's disappearance and continued until Kenneth's death, after which Eleanor increased the amount substantially. Reed re-interviewed Maria Sanchez, Eleanor's housekeeper, who eventually admitted that Eleanor had asked her to mail a sealed package to the state police cold case unit the day before her death. Sanchez, who had forgotten about this request in the shock of finding Eleanor's body, still had the package at her home. The package contained Kenneth Blackwood's personal journal from 1982, which included entries detailing an inappropriate fixation on Sophia. who had been his student in a night class he taught at the community college. On day 14, DNA analysis confirmed soil particles found in Kenneth's old workshop tools matched the soil surrounding Sophia's remains. A partial fingerprint on Sophia's recovered class ring matched Kenneth Blackwood. The evidence strongly suggested Kenneth had murdered Sophia and buried her in the garden, with Eleanor potentially having knowledge of, or at least suspicions about the crime for decades. As the investigation into both murders progressed, Detective Reed tracked the dark sedan seen at Eleanor's house to a rental car agency. The vehicle had been rented using Margaret Fleming's credit card. When confronted with this information, Margaret broke down and admitted she had visited her mother the night of the murder, but insisted Eleanor was alive when she left. She claimed they had argued about Eleanor's plan to reveal Kenneth's crime, which would destroy the family's reputation and potentially implicate Eleanor as an accessory after the fact. The investigation took an unexpected turn when forensic accountants discovered a series of unusual transactions in Eleanor's financial records. Beginning immediately after Kenneth's death in 2012, Eleanor had transferred over $1.2 million in small increments to offshore accounts. These transactions corresponded with cash withdrawals by Thomas Blackwood from various Chicago banks. When confronted, Thomas admitted to helping his mother move the money, but claimed he didn't know its purpose. Further investigation revealed these funds had been allocated to establish new identities for Sophia Martinez's younger siblings, who had apparently been living under assumed names since 2012. This shocking discovery led Reed to re-examine the Martinez case from an entirely new angle. Was it possible Sophia wasn't Kenneth's victim, but his accomplice in some other crime? Or had Eleanor been protecting someone else entirely? The answer emerged from an unexpected source. Analysis of the handwriting in Kenneth's incriminating journal revealed subtle inconsistencies with his known writing samples. A forensic document examiner concluded that the journal had been skillfully forged, likely by Eleanor herself. Meanwhile, DNA testing of material preserved under Sophia's fingernails didn't match Kenneth as expected, but rather showed a female contributor with familial links to the Blackwood children. The investigation hit a dramatic turning point when Reed received a package containing a video recording. The package had been arranged by Eleanor before her death to be delivered automatically if she didn't cancel the delivery service by entering a weekly code. In the video, recorded 3 months before her murder, Eleanor confessed to killing Sophia Martinez in 1982. According to Eleanor's recorded testimony, she had discovered that Kenneth was having an affair with Sophia, his student. Eleanor confronted Sophia at their home while Kenneth was genuinely at a business dinner. The confrontation escalated, and Eleanor struck Sophia with a garden tool, killing her accidentally. In panic and fear, she buried the body in their garden. That night, Kenneth discovered what had happened upon returning home and helped cover up the crime to protect his wife. They fabricated the story that Sophia had disappeared while walking home from campus. For 35 years, they lived with this secret, making anonymous donations to the Martinez family out of guilt. After Kenneth's death, Eleanor's guilt intensified. She created the forged journal implicating her deceased husband, planning to confess to authorities that she had recently discovered his guilt. This would bring closure to the Martinez family while protecting herself from prosecution. The video revealed one final, shocking twist. Eleanor suspected one of her children had discovered her plan and the true events of 1982. She named no names, but stated she had been receiving threatening notes warning her to maintain the secret. Eleanor believed her life was in danger, but was determined to clear Kenneth's name posthumously and accept responsibility for her actions, even if it meant going to prison. Reed immediately obtained warrants to search the homes of all 3 Blackwood children. In David's Vermont residence, investigators discovered a hidden room containing newspaper clippings of the Martinez case, surveillance photos of Eleanor, and drafts of threatening notes matching those Eleanor had described. They also found a .38 caliber revolver with one fired round, later confirmed as the murder weapon used to kill Eleanor. The most damning evidence came from David's personal computer. Files revealed he had been investigating his family's connection to the Martinez case for years. He had hacked into his mother's email account months before her death and discovered her plans to confess. Digital breadcrumbs showed he had created the anonymous email account Eleanor had been communicating with, posing as a sympathetic ear while gathering information about her intentions. David's research had gone deeper than anyone imagined. He had uncovered that Sofia Martinez wasn't just his father's student DNA. Analysis suggested she was likely his half-sister, the product of an affair Kenneth had before marrying Eleanor. David had pieced this together through old photographs, letters, and eventually a DNA test comparing his own genetic material with a sample from Sophia's hairbrush, preserved by her family, the woman in a headscarf who had emptied Eleanor's safety. Deposit box was identified as David's ex-girlfriend, Lisa Winters. When questioned, she admitted David had asked her to retrieve documents using the duplicate key he had secretly made during a visit to his mother's home. These documents included birth records suggesting Kenneth was Sophia's biological father, love letters between Kenneth and Sophia's mother, and financial records showing payments to Sophia's mother years before her disappearance. Text messages between David and Lisa revealed David's growing obsession with protecting his father's legacy. He had convinced himself that Eleanor had murdered Sophia out of jealousy, not just of an affair, but of Kenneth's other family. The messages outlined his plan to silence his mother before she could slander his father with a false confession. Most disturbing was David's journal, which detailed his belief that he was fulfilling his father's wishes by preventing Eleanor's confession. Entries described conversations with Kenneth's spirit and instructions he believed he was receiving to protect the family name at all costs. Mental health experts would later determine that David had experienced a psychotic break approximately 1 year before Eleanor's murder. The dark sedan caught on camera the night of Eleanor's murder was confirmed as David's rental car. Cell tower data placed his phone near Millfield at the time of the killing, contradicting his hiking alibi. When confronted with the evidence, David appeared eerily calm, stating only that some secrets should remain buried. The Commonwealth of Connecticut v. David Blackwood began 14 months after Eleanor's murder. State prosecutors charged David with first-degree murder, breaking and entering, tampering with evidence, and obstruction of justice. The case attracted national media attention, with reporters dubbing it the Garden of Secrets murder. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Victoria Wong, presented a methodical case built on the physical evidence connecting David to the crime scene. The murder weapon found in his possession contained his fingerprints. GSR, gunshot residue, discovered on clothing seized from his home, matched the type produced by the fired bullet. Cell tower data definitively placed him in Millfield at the time of the murder, destroying his hiking alibi. David's defense team, headed by prominent attorney James Leibowitz, immediately filed a motion for a mental health evaluation. After 6 weeks of assessment, psychiatrists determined that while David suffered from delusional disorder and possibly schizophrenia, he understood his actions at the time of the murder and could distinguish right from wrong. The court ruled him competent to stand trial. Though his mental state would factor into the defense strategy, Leibowitz built his case around David's deteriorating mental health following his father's death. Expert witnesses testified that David had developed an unhealthy fixation on protecting his father's reputation, eventually manifesting as delusions that Kenneth was communicating with him from beyond the grave. The defense argued for a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity, Prosecutor Wong countered by presenting evidence of David's methodical planning. Email records showed he had researched methods to make a murder appear as a home invasion. Security camera footage from various hardware stores captured him purchasing supplies, including gloves and the type of ammunition used in the murder. His Internet search history included queries about gunshot residue, police investigation techniques, and the security systems in his mother's neighborhood. The trial's most dramatic moment came during week 3, when the prosecution played Eleanor's video confession in its entirety. The courtroom fell silent as Eleanor detailed her role in Sofia Martinez's death 35 years earlier and her subsequent decades of guilt. The video ended with Eleanor looking directly into the camera and stating, "I've lived with this secret far too long. If anything happens to me before I can come forward, know that I was ready to face justice, and no one else should protect me from the consequences of my actions." Family members of Sofia Martinez testified about the decades of uncertainty they had endured, not knowing what had happened to their daughter and sister. They described receiving anonymous financial contributions over the years, which they had used to establish a foundation for missing persons. DNA evidence now confirmed that Sofia had indeed been Kenneth Blackwood's biological daughter from a relationship prior to his marriage to Eleanor. Thomas and Margaret Blackwood both testified for the prosecution, describing their brother's increasingly erratic behavior following their father's death. Margaret recounted a disturbing conversation with David 6 months before Eleanor's murder, during which he claimed their father was sending him messages about protecting the family legacy. Thomas testified about David's growing obsession with the Martinez case, including his brother's conviction that their mother was planning to destroy Dad's reputation with lies. Lisa Winters provided crucial testimony about retrieving documents from Eleanor's safety deposit box at David's request. She described his paranoid statements about his mother betraying the family and his determination to make things right. Bank security footage corroborated her account of accessing the box while disguised in a headscarf and sunglasses. After 23 days of testimony and evidence, the jury deliberated for just 7 hours before returning with their verdict. They found David Blackwood guilty of first-degree murder, but included a recommendation for psychiatric treatment alongside incarceration. Acknowledging his mental health issues. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Harold Brennan faced the complex task of balancing justice, public safety, and mental health considerations. David Blackwood, speaking for the first time during the proceedings, delivered a rambling statement in which he maintained he had acted to protect the truth and claimed his father would have done the same. He expressed no remorse for his mother's death, instead characterizing it as necessary sacrifice for family honor. Judge Brennan ultimately sentenced David to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 30 years, with the requirement that he receive psychiatric treatment throughout his incarceration. In his remarks, the judge acknowledged the tragic cascade of secrets, lies, and mental illness that destroyed 3 generations of 2 families. The case also resulted in the official closure of Sofia Martinez's disappearance after 35 years. Her remains were returned to her family for proper burial, and her death certificate was updated to reflect Eleanor Blackwood as her killer. No charges could be filed posthumously against Eleanor, but the record had finally been set straight. The Blackwood case exemplifies how a single secret, maintained over decades, can spread like poison through generations. What began with Eleanor's impulsive act of violence in 1982 culminated in her own murder 35 years later at the hands of her mentally ill son. Between these 2 deaths lay a complex web of deception, guilt, and misguided loyalty that ultimately destroyed 2 families. 5 years after the trial, the former Blackwood property remains vacant, its gardens overgrown, and the house falling into disrepair. Local residents refer to it as Secret Garden, a macabre reminder of what lay buried there for 3 decades. The Martinez Foundation for Missing Persons continues its work, now with Thomas and Margaret Blackwood serving on its board of directors. An unexpected alliance born from tragedy. David Blackwood remains incarcerated at the Connecticut Psychiatric Center for the Criminally Insane. According to his doctors, he continues to believe he acted correctly in protecting his father's legacy, despite all evidence to the contrary. Thomas and Margaret have cut all contact with their brother, focusing instead on rebuilding their lives and atoning for their family's actions through charitable work. The safety deposit box documents that David had removed were never recovered in their entirety. Those pages that were found revealed Kenneth's knowledge of his biological daughter, his financial support of her education, and his attempts to build a relationship with her while keeping the secret from Eleanor. The full extent of his relationship with Sophia remains unknown. Another secret taken to the grave. This case raises profound questions about the nature of family loyalty and the destructive power of secrets. At what point does protecting family become complicity in wrongdoing? Can guilt ever truly be buried, or does it inevitably work its way to the surface? And perhaps most disturbingly, how well do we really know those closest to us? In the end, Eleanor Blackwood's attempt to finally tell the truth cost her her life. The secret she took to her grave, that she never intended to implicate her husband in her confession, created chaos that continues to reverberate through both families. Some truths, it seems, come at too high a price, yet keeping them buried often costs even more.